Hey guys, Zach here with ZEM Construction, bringing you part 3 of our basement finishing series. Last video, we got all the trim wrapped up, started the painting process. The shower is completely waterproof. So if you haven't checked out part 2, make sure you go do that. So in this week's video, we are going to be finishing up the shower, wrapping up all of the paint, and then putting together the bathroom. So the vanity, countertop, sink, faucet, toilet, and other fixtures like that. So make sure you stay tuned.
Alright guys, as I am cutting the bottoms off of these doors, I wanted to make sure to include everything that had to do with doors in part 3 as opposed to splitting them up to parts 2 and 3. So we're backtracking a little bit technically, but what I'm doing here is I'm using the track saw to cut about 3/4 of an inch off the bottom of the door. Then the painter could go through, get those sprayed. We had to cut a little bit off the bottom of them because 3 of the 4 pocket doors are actually going to go underneath the large steel structural beam. Make sure you go check out part 1 to see what I'm talking about. But we were limited on the height, and so in order to fit the doors, we just had to take a little bit off the bottom. Can barely tell, I think it worked out fine. There was one door that was a pre-hung door, while the rest were pocket doors. So getting that hardware all mounted so that they slide nice and easy. This is the one in the bathroom. We pre-painted the doors in this case so that we could mount them inside and then wrap the trim all the way around. See, I'm opening and closing that a bunch to make sure that that jamb on that side just lines up perfectly, making minute adjustments to the slides, the rollers, the jamb, just everything. Make sure that it is nice and perfect with a perfect uniform reveal all the way around. Those double doors were quite the process to get them to line up perfectly, but a little bit of prep work prior to drywall made that process a lot easier, a lot more simple. We did include soft close and open hardware. We'll see a little bit more of that later. So as the painter was working, getting everything done there with trim, walls, ceiling, all of that stuff, we pretty much locked ourselves in the bathroom for the remainder of the project. So first was get the tile done on the shower floor. I've talked about this a little bit in previous videos where we like to do the shower floor first and then the wall tile on top of that, just to give an even better surface for water to flow as it comes down the wall, hits the tile floor, and then makes its way into the drain, as opposed to going the opposite way, leaving a potential gap or grout line in between that seam. So just an extra precaution that we have to get water to flow in the correct direction. The homeowner decided to go with a small hexagon black tile. I really like the look of this. We've actually used it in several other projects and have clients coming up that also like this, the same pattern. We did the same mosaic in the back of the niche. Going through and getting that all lined up, making sure it is centered, has good lines. We do grout the floor first, oftentimes, before we do the wall tile. Because the niche tile was already in, we decided we'd just grout that as well. They went with a dark charcoal gray grout, which I thought was a great choice. It wasn't close enough to the tile color where you couldn't see the shapes of the tile. I still think the shapes of the tile stand out and look really nice, but it does have a really nice overall look. Getting that all cleaned up. This was a pretty big shower, so it was nice to have a helper to go through and grout with me. You'll see a lot more grout later when we do the walls. So this is a 3x12 ceramic subway tile. We did a 50% offset in this case. This is what the homeowner wanted. As you can see, we got the laser lined up all the way through the center of the shower with the faucet. Just going through, back buttering every single piece, getting those laid on. Again, really nice to have a helper in this case. Using a tile leveling system. I know as with these smaller tiles, it may not be completely necessary. This size of tile I hadn't worked with a ton before, and so in this case we just thought, better be safe than sorry. We'll use the anti-lippage or the leveling system. I'm going through, making sure the grout lines all match up with the niche perfectly. I'm a huge stickler for making sure that the grout lines work their way around the niche, make it look like it was planned and intentional. I stay away from the pre-built niches. I know some of the really good shower systems do have a pre-built niche, and in some cases you can make those work if the niche is the right size for the tile that you're using. Oftentimes that is not the case. So where we can prefabricate our own niche that will line up perfectly with the grout lines, as you can see, there's full tiles on the top, on the bottom, and either a full tile or a half tile on the sides of the niche. We used some clamps to make sure we can get that perfectly level. After the back wall was all done, we came through and did the side walls. We did those simultaneously, kind of working our way back and forth. There's a couple different ways you can go about doing the Schluter trim on the outside. Obviously, the easiest way is to set the Schluter in while it is wet, while the thin set is still drying, and that is what we did in this case. We built our way all the way up the walls on the side. You can see the nice big black Sharpie line that we used as a reference, and then before the thin set all dries, you take your Schluter trim and put that in through the side. The other option, which we use sometimes as well, is we'll actually staple the aluminum trim to the wall prior to installing the tile. Kind of just gives us another reference point. We use staples because there still is a little bit of an adjustment as opposed to like screws or nails or something like that. So you can move the Schluter in and out accordingly, to make the reveal look as nice as possible. We went with a black, matte black Schluter aluminum to match the rest of the hardware in the bathroom. A little bit of a satisfying clip of getting all of those leveling clips removed. We do go back and do the first row last after we remove the ledger board. As often as you can, you want to try to make the shower floor level, but sometimes, especially with concrete slabs and those types of things, you don't necessarily have a perfectly level surface to start with. So to put up a ledger board using the laser, using nice higher end levels, that you have a perfect starting point. The rest of the walls are going to be perfect. Then you can come back and do a little bit of a custom fit for that first row, just in case there is any imperfections in the slope of the concrete. After all the walls were done, I'm going through here and putting the tile in the niche, doing my best to line up the grout lines so that it just wraps all the way through seamlessly. We did go with the same black Schluter aluminum trim around the niche as well. I think it accents really well with the black hexagons. I was a big fan of this look. You can see even how one row to the next does have an offset pattern. I actually carried that pattern through into the niche, so the top and the bottom of the niche will have an alternating tile pattern, just so those grout lines match up even nicer. We did plan it out to where we could use a full tile on the width of the niche, so that just again adds to the overall look, a little bit more planned out. And then we also made it to where a full tile goes up the front of the curb as well, as opposed to having some small sliver pieces or anything like that. So again, just a little bit of pre-planning, make things look a little bit nicer. Doing the outside of the curb, inside of the curb, we did go with a quartz curb topper. If I can, I try to use a single piece, and they do sell those in 72-inch long quartz pieces, just readily available at the big box stores. This shower was a little bit longer than those pieces, so we went with a little bit of a smaller one. We do end up using, as you can see right here, we did use a white grout, a high gloss white grout, in order to make it appear that this was one solid piece going all the way through. So we did that one first, let that set up. Again, the shower floor and niche were already grouted. So now we're going through and grouting all of the shower walls. Usually when you grout, they say do as far as you can reach. Give that grout 10 to 15 minutes or so to start setting up, and then come through and wash with a sponge. We usually like to use 2 buckets. We have a rinse bucket and then a clean bucket. Again, really nice to have a helper in this case, to where I could just keep on moving, and then my employee Cody could move along behind me and just keep stuff clean. Again, we're really trying to pay attention to that setup time, that 10 to 15 minutes. We broke it up to where we did one wall on the left side, the right wall, half of the back wall, and then the other half of the back wall. We felt that we could grout and sponge in a good pattern that would allow us to follow the manufacturer's recommendations on proper application. If you didn't have a helper, I think you would just wait. I think you would do one wall, wait that 10 minutes, wipe it down, go to the next wall, wait that 10 minutes, wipe it down. So it is possible, but oftentimes you're going to have to be mixing up multiple batches of grout as opposed to one big batch where you can just move along. So once everything was grouted, next was the massive glass panel. This panel was 78 inches tall by 60 inches wide. So that left about a 29-inch opening on the left side. Really big piece of glass. Luckily, the painter was there to help us get this installed. He's a big guy, obviously, so while he was waiting for paint to dry is when we decided to get this installed, so it was nice to have his help. And after the glass was installed, I'm going through and using a color match silicone to go through all of the inside corners, bottom corners, inside corners of the niche. And then after all of those corners are siliconed, I go through with a clear silicone, of course, to get the shower panel and the glass all sealed and waterproof, make sure we don't have any leaks or anything like that. There's several different ways to caulk a shower. This one I was using denatured alcohol. I'd put a nice bead, spray on some denatured alcohol. What that does is anywhere that denatured alcohol is, it doesn't allow the silicone to stick, so you can go through and wipe that off. We use masking as well in order to apply silicone. Just kind of depends on the product and how we're feeling. Now here is a shot of the painter. We actually have several cameras going at the same time, so you can see we're in there doing some tile while he was out here painting, so there's a little bit of a gap in the time, but just so you can get an idea of how this project was moving along. The color we use often in our remodels is agreeable gray. It is one of the most popular colors, looks good with everything. It is the color that I use in my house, and most of our clients really like it. I end up buying it by 10 to 20 gallons at a time just because it's nice to have plenty of extra and it's not going to go to waste. There's a very high probability that that same color will be used on the next project as well. So the vanity that we end up using in this bathroom is actually a 3-piece custom cabinet vanity, and the width came out to be about 54 inches wide. So because of that, it's not a standard vanity width. 48 is very standard and 60 inches wide is very standard. So because we had a little bit of a weird width, I couldn't find a vanity frame that I like. So I ended up building my own. I used the trim that we used around the doors to build my own. You'll see more of that later. Here you actually see my employee Cody. He is going through and assembling all of the cabinets. So we went with a ready to assemble product in this case. There was a very large storage cabinet. It was 94 inches tall. I was worried that we weren't going to be able to get that down the stairs very easily. So we went with a, there it is right there. You can see it on the right. We ended up not using that in the bathroom. The homeowner felt like it didn't really work with the space. So didn't end up needing it, but we went with a ready to assemble option so that we could assemble those down in the basement and install those easy. So after all the painting was done, you can see there the painter was taking off the masking over those beautiful frosted glass panels. Now I'm going through and installing the pocket door hardware. I really like this product. It is actually a round pocket door hardware as opposed to the square ones that you have seen most likely, where you have to cut a big square notch out of the door. This one you can actually use traditional doorknob installation techniques where you drill using a hole saw. I like it. I think it looks a lot better. It matches, especially if you have other standard doorknobs in the space using the same doors. This one, I put one of the doorknobs on one door and then the receiver on the other door so that when they slide together, it actually could be latched and locked together. Great product. And I actually have a video that we're planning on coming out. I have a different method that I use for installing those, so make sure you stay tuned and subscribe for that video. So now we're getting those cabinets installed that Cody had assembled. Going through screwing the face frames together using some nice clamps, making sure that is all uniform, and then going back with shims and ensuring that everything is square, plumb, and level. These, of course, all had soft close hardware. We go through later and install the handles. Once that was all in, I go through and put the toilet in now. We really are in the home stretch. This is some of the last things. You can see the painter was helping us get things in. He was just waiting on paint to dry, doing touch-ups and things like that. So going through and doing some of the plumbing fixtures, the shower faucet, the shower handle, the shower head. So they had a really cool adjustable wand head system. I think it turned out really nice. Matching sink faucet. We actually had subcontractors come in to install the countertops. The supplier, they offer free installs, of course. I was going to take advantage of that. Getting a light, again, that matches all of the rest of the hardware. And now we're getting to installing our custom-built vanity mirror. I think it turned out really nice. It was the exact same paint color as all of the trim. It's actually the same material as the trim, so it matches. Looks nice. It's the perfect width of the cabinets, which is super important as opposed to doing something smaller. The way that it was set up, that would really be the only option, which I really didn't want. Big gaps on either side. So now that everything was completely done, the last step is to get everything cleaned up. So we pull all the masking up. Of course, we had some dirt and dust from the previous steps, so going through getting those swept. And this project was really fun. It turned out beautiful. We ended up getting some referrals from this client. This client was very, very good to work with. We enjoyed them a lot.
All right, guys, we're all finished up. Came down the stairs into the main living room. We got this utility room all finished up. Of course, the venting for the hot water heater that's in there. 2 big double pocket doors, which you saw. It's one of my favorite parts. And because I had glass panels, we were made sure to do a soft and open close hardware. In the main master bedroom with the big closet that was underneath the stairs. Again, another 5-panel soft close pocket door. And then the egress window with all of the trim. Everything, of course, matches upstairs, window sills and the bullnose. And then my favorite part of the whole project is this bathroom with a massive 7.5 by 3.5 foot shower, 54-inch vanity with a beautiful granite top. We actually fabricated that mirror ourselves. But thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave some feedback in the comments down below. Tell me if you like the long time lapses, if you like the more in-depth breakdowns with, of course, with time lapses involved there. Tell me if you want to see some more, if you want some more breakdowns, more in-depth, maybe weekly videos on how we do things. So love to hear from you. Thank you again so much for watching. We'll talk to you later.